everyone. My name is Pooja Ramchandani. I am a partner with Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas, leading the employment law practice. I will be speaking about the impact of the various advisories and directives issued by the central and state governments against termination of employment and reduction of salary, and about the relaxations and granted by the government under employment law. The world is in an unprecedented situation with the outbreak of the 2019 novel coronavirus. Numerous countries have instituted stringent policy measures to prevent the spread of the outbreak. The World Health Organization has declared COVID-19 as a pandemic. With the rise in the number of cases in India from the month of March, several states framed COVID regulations under the Epidemics Act to combat the spread of the disease. The COVID regulations prescribed policy measures such as travel restrictions, workplace closures, and mandatory quarantines. On March 14th, the Disaster Management Division of the Ministry of Home Affairs declared COVID-19 as a notified disaster. COVID-19 has disrupted the workplace in many organizations, and employers are being faced with a multitude of challenges while dealing with issues relating to workforce management and labor law compliance. The lead up to Lockdown 1.0 saw a slew of orders, directions, and advisories by the central and state governments. On March 16th, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare issued an advisory on social distancing, urging all states and union territory governments to take social distancing measures. On March 20th, the Ministry of Labour and Employment addressed letters to Chief Secretaries of States and Union Territories, Department of Public Enterprises, and Employers Associations to issue advisories to employers of all establishments against termination of employment and reduction of wages of employees, workers, casual and contractual workers, and to treat the employees to be on duty during the period of absence where the unit is non-operational. Pursuant to these advisories, state governments issued respective lockdown notifications as well as advisories or directions against termination of employment and reduction of wages. Thereafter, on March 24th, the nationwide lockdown for a period of 21 days was announced by the MHA. The guidelines issued with the Lockdown 1.0 order exempted certain establishments from lockdown subject to compliance with social distancing and standard operating procedures issued by the MHA. Subsequently, on March 29th, the MHA issued an order under the Disaster Management Act directing all ministries and state governments to ensure that, to quote, all the employers, be it in the industry or in the shops and commercial establishments, make payment of wages to their workers on the due date without any deduction for the period their establishments are under closure during the lockdown, end quote. Then on March 30th, the Ministry of Labour and Employment issued another letter directing state and union territory governments to rigorously take up the issue of loss of employment and non-payment of wages with principal employers and contractors of public and private organizations, and to advise all private and public enterprises not to terminate their employees, casual and contractual workers, and also not to reduce or deduct their wages if employees take quarantine leave. Ultimately, on April 14th, the lockdown was extended until May 3rd, 2020. This time round, certain additional establishments were permitted to operate from April 20th onwards, subject to preparatory arrangements on social distancing and safety. These arrangements included temperature screening, providing sanitizers, gap of 1 hour between shifts, staggered lunch breaks, sanitization of workplaces, providing transportation, providing medical insurance, ban on spitting, training on hygiene, displaying a list of nearby hospitals treating COVID, amongst others. Thereafter, MHA's order of April 24th permitted all standalone shops, excluding those in malls and marketplaces, to open with 50% capacity in urban areas, except in containment zones. Implementation of this order by state governments depends on the ground situation and is evolving. That said, it seems that post May 3rd, normalcy in totality will not be restored, but there will be a graded opening of green zones with strict measures of social distancing and SOPs. As per the Lockdown 2.0 order, other than those specifically permitted to operate, all other establishments have to work from home only. In situations where work from home is not possible, the advisories and directives urge the employers to consider the employees to be on duty. Therefore, as you can see, the message of the government through these notifications is for cooperation by the employers in terms of retaining jobs and maintaining salaries during the period of lockdown in order to provide economic stability to employees in such difficult times. Now you may ask, what about the employers? What about the hardships being faced by them? To reduce the hardships faced by employers, the government has taken a few small initiatives. It is contributing Provident Fund for 3 months for establishments with less than 100 employees and where monthly salary of 90% of employees is less than INR 15,000. For others, contribution to Provident Fund for the month of March has been extended for 30 days to May 15th for those employers who pay salaries in March and demonstrate proof of payment. Similarly, contribution towards ESI has been extended to May for the month of February and March. Date for filing unified annual returns has been extended, as has the validity of the license under Contract Labour Act and Interstate Migrant Workers Act. There is a stimulus expected for the MSMEs, and several industry associations have made representations to the government to cast a wider net with respect to reliefs. While the lockdown is without a doubt imperative to contain COVID-19, Indian businesses and operations have been affected severely. Naturally, the question arises whether the orders, directions, and advisories are binding and mandatory to comply. 3 special leave petitions have been filed before the Supreme Court, challenging the constitutional validity of the MHA order dated March 29th. Insofar as it relates to the direction to pay wages without deductions during the lockdown period. The substantial question of law for consideration in the SLPs is whether the government is empowered to issue directions to private establishments to pay 100% wages under the Disaster Management Act. The petitioner has prayed for quashing the direction pertaining to payment of wages on the due date without any deduction. Intervention applications have also been filed by 2 unions in this matter. It is important to understand that the obligation to pay wages is both contractual and statutory. No employment contract provides for a clause on frustration because of a pandemic. Therefore, if tested, the contract would stand in favor of the employees. The several inter-department letters issued by the government are in the form of advisories that do not have the force of law and are in the nature of good faith recommendations. However, the MHA order dated March 29th, issued under the Disaster Management Act, constitutes a binding directive. Similarly, circulars issued by some state governments under the Epidemic Diseases Act can be construed to be binding as well. A breach of these orders and directives will attract penalties under the Disaster Management Act, Epidemics Diseases Act, and the Indian Penal Code. Under law, one has a right to challenge the validity of these orders and directives on the ground that the Disaster Management Act has nothing to do with wages. However, from a practical perspective, in the current scenario, the likelihood of a court leaning in favor of employees is higher, as that would be in the interest of social welfare and saving the employees from hardship. In fact, the Supreme Court in its order regarding the migrant workers has, by way of an observation, commented on the expectation of compliance with the orders, advisories, and directives issued by the governments. Therefore, the dilemma continues on what can employers do during the period of lockdown when economic crisis is looming and resources are depleting. Let's discuss some key questions that is on everybody's mind. Is it possible to terminate employment, reduce, restructure, or defer salary, lay off, or furlough? While termination is not recommended, with the consent of employees, it is possible to restructure or defer salary, layoff or furlough. I would like to clarify here that a layoff under industrial law is a temporary suspension of employment where the employee is paid a compensation, which is typically 50% of the wages. Next, can PTO or paid time off be adjusted? The intention under the advisories and directives is that absence during the period of lockdown should be treated as though the employee is on duty. Therefore, PTO is not recommended to be adjusted. Another question is, can an offer of employment be withdrawn? Under law, employment commences once an employee joins. However, once an offer is accepted, a binding contract is formed which can be terminated in accordance with its terms. Next, what is the obligation towards EPF and ESI? EPF and ESI contribution is required to be made within the extended time frame, except for those establishments for which the government is making the contribution towards Provident Fund. Further, whether bonus and increments can be deferred or withheld. The answer to this is yes, bonus and increments can be deferred and withheld as both these are discretionary. An important question for essential service providers is, can an essential service provider take action against employees who refuse to come to work? The answer to this is that it is possible for an essential service provider to take action against an employee who is unwilling to come to work despite the employer complying with all the stipulations of safety and social distancing prescribed by the government. However, a word of caution, any action should be reasonable. Termination of employment at the first instance is not recommended, where the reason for not coming to work is fear of contracting the disease. Therefore, until the Supreme Court decides on the various SLPs and the quagmire of legal issues is cleaned up, essentially there are three approaches: the cautious approach, the anti-risk or consent approach, and the risk approach. Those who have opted for the risk approach, the employees and unions have filed complaints before labor authorities. Those who have opted for the anti-risk approach have obtained consent from their employees and unions for pay cuts. Organizations who have taken a cautious approach have not reduced salary but have frozen increments. Then there are the altruistic organizations which have paid advance salary and salary twice in a month respectively. I would like to leave you with a few thoughts. COVID-19 has brought about a radical change to what we know and are used to as normal. The new normal comprises of work from home, reduced capacity, workforce restructuring, change in hours of work, change in business model and SOPs, digital revolution, surge in gig economy, etc. Back to work is imminent for some and needs to be embraced with the changed environment. To cater to these changes and revival of operations, it is vital that employers proactively implement the standard operating procedures as a norm. Consider contingency and capacity planning. Contemplate outsourcing of non-key functions. Relook at HR policies. Create stronger safeguards for proprietary information. Build robust technology and digital infrastructure. Train employees, including with respect to precautions from smart devices, amongst others. This brings me to the end of my discussion. Thank you.